Way back in 1943, a special committee in what we now know as Sri Lanka was handed this monumental task: design an entire education system not for a colony, but for a brand new, free nation. This is the story of their incredible blueprint, a plan that would literally shape the country for generations.
Now, you gotta understand, for the leaders of pre-independent Ceylon, this wasn't just some academic question. This was the real deal. They were staring down this enormous challenge of taking an education system built by a colonial power and turning it into something that could actually unite and empower their own people, forging a whole new national identity from the ground up. And this right here, a quote from the report itself, this became their guiding star, their North Star. The committee knew that just tweaking the old system wouldn't cut it. No way. They believed education had to be homegrown, you know? It had to reflect the unique culture, the values, and the dreams of Ceylon, not some foreign power. So to really get why this was so groundbreaking, you have to look at the system they were trying to replace. The education they had was basically a British import. It was a remnant of the empire and was designed for one thing: to churn out clerks and administrators to keep the colonial machine running. It was not designed to create citizens for a democracy. And the difference couldn't be more stark. It was a total clash of visions. On one hand, you had the colonial system, totally foreign, designed for the rich, and all about English language and culture. And on the other hand, you had this new vision, a system that was authentically Ceylonese, democratic, and all about building a shared identity. They were just two completely different worlds.
And these numbers from 1940, they just lay it all out there. It's pretty shocking. A whopping 81% of students were being taught in their own mother tongue, Sinhalese or Tamil. But the language of power, of government, of getting a good job, that was English, and it was only available to a tiny, privileged few. This created this massive social divide.
But you know, it wasn't just about language. The committee found something deeper, something rotten at the core of the system, which they brilliantly called the examination mentality. Education had become this race, a race to pass exams, a game of just memorizing and cramming. It had nothing to do with real understanding or thinking for yourself. It was just about getting a piece of paper. And they argued this was creating students with, quote, much knowledge and little understanding.
So who were the people tasked with fixing this mess? Well, it was the Special Committee on Education, led by a minister named C.W.W. Kannangara. And their job was huge: tear down that old colonial structure and build from scratch a new system that was actually fit for a real democracy.
Right. So they started with the big picture. What is education even for? And it wasn't just about passing tests. They saw it as this holistic thing, focused on building a complete person, their mind, their character and values, and their ability to actually be a productive part of society.
And you know, it wasn't just about changing the schools. They had to change the culture too. The old system made everyone think that the only good jobs were sitting at a desk. It looked down on practical, hands-on skills. This created a huge problem because what the country actually needed was skilled farmers, craftspeople, and technicians.
Okay, so let's recap. The system was foreign, it was divided, and it was obsessed with exams. They had the diagnosis down cold. But what was the solution? What on earth could they do to fix all of this?
What they came up with, well, it was nothing short of a revolution. Seriously, it was this audacious, massive proposal that was going to change everything about Ceylonese society for decades. And the core of it, the one big idea that held it all together, it was breathtakingly simple.
Yeah, that's it. Make it all free, for every single person.
And here it is, the exact words from the report. We recommend that education should be free from the kindergarten to the university. With that one sentence, they just knocked down the biggest wall to opportunity: money. Your wealth or your family's wealth was no longer supposed to decide your future.
But making it free? That was just step one. That was the key to unlock the door. What was behind the door was a whole new design for the school system itself.
So here's how they imagined it would work. First, every kid, no matter if they were rich or poor, would go to the same kind of primary school, and they'd be taught in their mother tongue. Then, around age 11, they'd take a test. But this wasn't a test of what they'd memorized. It was a test to figure out what they were naturally good at. And based on those results, they'd get guided into one of 3 new types of schools. So you end up with these 3 different tracks. Instead of forcing everyone down the same path, they wanted to create a system that actually fit the kid. You had the practical school for hands-on skills, the senior school for business and industry, and the secondary school for the more academic kids heading to university. The goal was to give every single child a real path to success.
Now you can imagine a plan this huge, this radical. It was bound to stir up some serious debate. This was a complete shakeup of the way things were, and not everyone on the committee, or in the country for that matter, was sold on the idea.
And to their credit, the report doesn't hide the disagreements. There were real fears. Some members worried that if education was free, the quality would plummet. Others thought that teaching in Sinhalese and Tamil all the way up would just divide the country. And some just thought, whoa, this is way too much, way too fast. Let's do this gradually.
And this just shows you how big of a deal this was. 3.5 years, 90 meetings. This wasn't some quick fix they came up with over a weekend. This was a long, hard, passionate fight over the very soul of the nation they were trying to build. When you boil it all down, this one quote really captures the heart of the whole thing. The committee's vision was fundamentally democratic. A child's future shouldn't be decided by their family's bank account. It should be decided by their potential, their talent, their ability. Pure and simple.
And that really brings us right back to today. 80 years later, the arguments that this report started are still happening, not just in Sri Lanka, but all over the world. And it makes all of us ask that same fundamental question: what is education for? Is it a basic human right that everyone deserves? Is it a privilege for those who can pay for it? Or is it an investment a country makes in its own future? The answers, well, they're just as complicated now as they were back then.